Hello and welcome to this explainer. Go ahead and take a slow, deep breath with me and just allow yourself to really settle in. Today, we're diving into something that touches literally every single one of us. We'll be walking through the profoundly healing teachings of Maria Felipe's A Course in Miracles Simplified, and we're zeroing in on a topic that honestly brings us so much grief: why we get triggered. I'm here to guide you through this at a nice, calm, grounded pace. We're going to break down these deep psychological concepts and make them super practical for your everyday life. So let's just jump right in.
I want you to really let this question land for a second. Why do certain people trigger such intense emotions inside of us? You know the exact feeling I'm talking about, right? It's that sudden tightness in your chest, the heat rising up in your cheeks, the racing thoughts when someone simply says a specific word or even just gives you a certain look. The emotional pain we feel in those moments, it is so real. It's heavy, it's completely exhausting, and it can just instantly steal our peace. But to figure out how to heal this pain, we first have to take a really honest look at where these triggers actually show up in our daily lives. Because our triggers aren't just abstract ideas, are they? They are deeply woven right into the messy fabric of our everyday lives. Think about the friction that pops up in romantic relationships, or those deeply exhausting parenting struggles. Notice how quickly your peace is disrupted by complex friendships or those deeply rooted family dynamics. We've all felt that sharp sting of criticism or the heavy, sinking ache of rejection. Sometimes it's the quiet pain of feeling ignored or overtly disrespected. And in our modern world, my goodness, we are constantly navigating the anxiety of social media comparison, the burn of jealousy, and that exhausting grip of needing to be in control. These everyday scenarios are the exact battlegrounds where we lose our peace the most. But to heal, we have to embrace a pretty radical paradigm shift, and it's this: the real source of your pain isn't them. When we get triggered, our immediate, instinctual reaction is to point the finger outward. We think to ourselves, well, if they would just act differently, I would finally be at peace, right? But as long as we believe the source of our suffering is outside of us, we remain entirely powerless to change it. Blaming others literally just reinforces our own suffering. True healing only begins when we're willing to look in a completely different direction. We start shifting that direction by understanding one of the absolute foundational maxims from A Course in Miracles. It says, projection makes perception. Let's just pause for a moment and really sit with the weight of that. Projection makes perception. What that means is that the world you are seeing, particularly the parts that upset you the most, is actually a reflection of what you're holding onto in your own mind. You're just passively observing the world. You're actively projecting your inner state right onto it. Let's unpack this a little bit more. Projection is when we unconsciously take our own hidden fears, our guilt, or our deep wounds, and we place them onto someone else. We do this because, honestly, facing our own internal pain just feels way too overwhelming. So we cast it outward. Psychologically speaking, this means we often judge in others the very things we secretly fear within ourselves. Think about it. If you're deeply triggered by someone's arrogance, there might just be a hidden fear of your own inadequacy hiding in there. Or if you're triggered by someone's irresponsibility, it might be reflecting your own exhausting need for rigid control. To understand why we project in the first place, we have to look at the mechanism behind it. A Course in Miracles calls this the ego. The ego is the part of our mind that actively uses relationships to reinforce separation, conflict, and pain. Listen, the ego does not want you to feel connected or peaceful or whole. It thrives on conflict. It wants you to feel isolated and completely justified in your anger. Whenever you're triggered, it's really just the ego using a relationship to convince you that you're separate from another person and ultimately separate from love itself. Which brings us to a fascinating but definitely challenging concept: special relationships. In A Course in Miracles, this actually doesn't mean something positive. It describes the unconscious bonds the ego uses to extract value and maintain control. Our most intimate bonds, our romantic partners, our parents, our kids, they are so often treated by the ego as special relationships. Instead of being places of unconditional love, the ego turns them into these little battlegrounds for control, where we demand the other person behave in a very specific way just to make us feel safe or worthy. But Maria Felipe's highly practical style of teaching helps us cut right through the ego's illusions to a really powerful truth. People are simply mirrors for our unconscious beliefs. The people who trigger you the absolute most, they are actually your greatest teachers. They're simply holding up a mirror, reflecting back to you your own unhealed internal wounds. When someone gets under your skin, they are showing you exactly where you still need to heal and exactly where you're still withholding love from yourself. Let's look at how this mirror effect plays out in real life. Let's say someone ignores your text message. That's the external action. It's simply an event. But the internal belief it triggers, that might be a feeling of being fundamentally unworthy. The intense emotional pain you feel in that moment isn't actually about the unreturned text at all. It's about the deeply held, hidden belief that you don't matter. The external trigger simply illuminated an internal belief that is desperately calling out for your compassion and your healing. Which leads us to this really beautiful, deeply comforting question. What if emotional triggers are actually invitations to awaken? When we start looking at triggers through this lens, they completely change their shape. They're no longer these awful moments of victimhood or needless suffering. They become profound opportunities. Every single time you are triggered, the universe is gently knocking on the door of your heart, inviting you to heal a piece of yourself that has been living in the dark. So the absolutely crucial point here is that we always have a choice in how we handle these moments. We stand before two paths. On one side, we have reacting unconsciously. This is the path of the ego, defensiveness, blaming others, and ultimately just staying stuck in the cycle of pain. But on the other side, we have responding with awareness. This means taking emotional responsibility. It means pausing, looking inward, and consciously choosing to heal. This is your path to freedom. So how do we actively choose that path to freedom? Well, we can practice 3 practical steps to transform those triggers in real time. Step 1. Notice the trigger without judgment. Just observe the feeling in your body without making yourself bad or wrong for feeling it. Step 2. Pause and look inward. Instead of lashing out, just stop. Ask yourself, what is this really about? What fear is this touching inside me? And step 3. Take emotional responsibility. Acknowledge that the pain is yours to heal and gently withdraw that projection off of the other person. And when you actually begin to practice these steps, something pretty miraculous happens. Non-judgment transforms relationships entirely. When we stop judging the mirror, when we stop attacking the person who triggered us, our real-world relationships naturally begin to shift. The friction just kind of dissolves. Because when you're no longer projecting your pain onto them, they no longer have to play the role of the enemy. The entire dynamic is freed. And all of this really comes down to the fundamental teaching of A Course in Miracles, the ultimate choice. In every single moment, especially those highly triggering ones, we are choosing between 2 teachers. On one side is fear, which creates the illusion of separation and pain. On the other side is love, which reminds us of the truth of our inherent connection and our worthiness. Taking emotional responsibility is simply the act of choosing love over fear. And the mechanism for choosing that love? It's forgiveness. Forgiveness is the path back to inner peace. But we need to reframe it because it's not what we typically think it is. Forgiveness in A Course in Miracles isn't about letting someone off the hook for bad behavior. Not at all. It's about liberating your own mind. It's forgiving yourself for having projected your pain onto them in the first place, and recognizing that the separation the ego tried to sell you was only ever an illusion. Let's land on this beautifully calming thought, choosing peace instead of conflict. You are the author of your internal state. You do not have to be a victim to the actions of others ever again. By understanding projection and by seeing people as mirrors for your own healing, you reclaim all of your power. You can literally look at the very person who used to cause you so much anger and quietly say, "Thank you. Thank you for showing me what I needed to heal," because you can always choose peace. I really hope this explainer has brought you a sense of comfort and clarity today. If this message resonated with you, I warmly invite you to support this journey. Please give this explainer a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications so we can continue walking this path of healing together. And if someone came to mind while we were exploring these teachings today, someone who might be struggling with their own triggers right now, please share this message with them. And if you're ready to take these concepts and integrate them deeply into your own life, I invite you to join the Happy Miracle membership. It's a space where you can access even deeper teachings from A Course in Miracles and receive guided monthly practices. Also, don't forget, we premiere new ACIM Simplified explainers right here every single Sunday. Until then, please be gentle with yourself. Because the next time you feel your blood boil and a trigger arise, you have to ask yourself, will you choose the familiar prison of fear, or will you bravely step through the door, heal the mirror, and finally choose peace?